Grant Holloway did not believe in accidents, not in the boardroom where fortunes flipped on a misplaced comma in a contract, not in the fleeting glances of love where hearts were collateral in a game of fleeting alliances, and certainly not in the shadowed trenches of corporate war where every strike was deliberate, every retreat a feint. So when the sabotage began, subtle at first, like a whisper in a storm, then escalating to precise, almost artistic incisions, he knew it was no fluke of fate. It started innocuously enough, a promising acquisition in Minneapolis derailed by leaked regulatory hurdles that appeared out of nowhere, vanishing his due diligence into thin air. Then a cutting-edge biotech startup in San Diego slipped through his fingers, snapped up overnight by a phantom shell company that dissolved like smoke the moment he tried to trace it. By the third hit, a revolutionary gene editing firm in Boston poached right under his nose. Grant leaned back in his rain-lashed penthouse office overlooking the fractured Chicago skyline, the city lights splintering like shattered glass. He poured himself a scotch, neat, and allowed a rare predatory smile to curve his lips. "Find out who's touching my deals," he instructed his team, his voice a calm blade in the storm. No rage, no theatrics, just the quiet certainty of a man who turned obstacles into opportunities. If you're the type who thrives on tales where power is the ultimate aphrodisiac, where ambition tangles with forbidden desire like vines choking a trellis, hit that like button and subscribe right now. Trust me, you won't want to miss the shadows we're about to uncover. Grant Holloway wasn't the flashy breed of billionaire, the ones who paraded their wealth like peacocks in Silicon Valley galas. No, he was something far more insidious, controlled money, the kind that moved silently through veins of influence, reshaping industries without a ripple on the surface. At 42, he helmed Holloway Life Sciences, a biotech behemoth where breakthroughs outpaced ethics committees, and regulations were mere suggestions to be navigated, not obeyed. His custom suits bore no ostentatious labels. His voice was a soft murmur in rooms echoing with bluster, forcing others to lean in, to hang on every word. People learned quickly, Grant never repeated himself. But what the world didn't know, what even his closest allies couldn't fathom, was that someone had slipped past his defenses, not with brute force, but with a surgeon's precision, planting seeds of doubt right inside his meticulously ordered mind. 3 days later, in the sterile glow of his office, his head of strategy, a sharp-eyed woman named Elena with a knack for unraveling knots, placed a slim file on his desk. "We traced the shell companies," she said, her tone laced with reluctant admiration. "They loop back through layers of proxies, but they all converge on a single consultant. Anonymous, no digital footprint, no public records. It's like chasing a ghost." Grant flipped open the file, his eyes scanning the sparse details, transaction logs, encrypted emails, financial signatures as clean as a sterilized lab, arrogant in their minimalism, as if daring him to dig deeper. "What's the name?" he asked, his voice even. Elena hesitated, shifting her weight. "There isn't one, but the patterns match a strategist whispered about in underground circles. Goes by initials only. IR." Grant's fingers froze on the page. Those letters, they echoed from a past he'd buried deep, a fleeting encounter at a Geneva conference years ago, where a woman with eyes like storm clouds had dismantled a rival's pitch with a single incisive question. He hadn't caught her name then, but the initials lingered like a scar. Who's paying her? The answer detonated softly in the room. Marcus Roarke. Grant let out a low, unamused laugh that didn't reach his eyes. Marcus Roarke, pharmaceutical aristocracy, old money steeped in tradition, the kind who collected companies like antique vases and preached that true innovation couldn't be rushed, it had to ferment like fine wine. He was also tethered to a woman Grant had encountered precisely twice at industry soirees, where power brokers mingled like sharks in chummed waters. Isabel Roarke. She had stood beside Marcus like a masterpiece on display, exquisite, poised, utterly silent. Grant remembered thinking she exuded a boredom so profound it bordered on volatility, like a coiled spring disguised as elegance. He hadn't realized then how prophetic that thought would prove. His first countermove wasn't vengeance. Grant didn't waste energy on petty strikes. Instead, he orchestrated a subtle lure, leaking a fabricated vulnerability in an upcoming acquisition, a chink in the armor only a master strategist would spot and exploit. 2 nights later, he positioned himself in a clandestine bar nestled in the subterranean vaults of a Chicago art museum, where dim lights cast elongated shadows over marble sculptures, and the air hummed with discreet conversations. He waited, nursing a drink, his posture relaxed, but his mind a web of calculations. Isabel arrived unaccompanied, cutting through the haze like a blade. She wore black, not the frivolous ornamental variety, but structured armor, tailored to intimidate. Her dark hair was pulled to a severe knot, framing a face that commanded space without apology. When her gaze locked onto his, there was no flicker of surprise, only the cool gleam of assessment. "Mr. Holloway," she said, sliding into the seat opposite him without invitation. Her voice was velvet over steel. "You've made a mistake." Grant arched his brow, intrigued. "I don't think so. You baited a trap, assuming I'd take it personally." She crossed her legs with deliberate grace. "Sloppy work for someone of your reputation." He appraised her anew, not as the trophy wife of a rival, but as the architect of his recent misfortunes, sharp, unyielding, with a mind that mirrored his own in its ruthless efficiency. "Then why are you here?" "Because you didn't strike back directly," Isabel replied, her eyes narrowing. "You circled. That tells me you're curious, and curiosity, that's my leverage." Grant's smile unfolded slowly, genuine this time. "Drink?" He gestured to the menu. She didn't glance at it. "No." The silence between them thickened, charged with unspoken currents, the kind that sparked wildfires. "You're good," Grant conceded at last. "Better than I anticipated." "You anticipated ornamentation," she shot back, unflinching. "That's your second mistake." He leaned forward, the space between them shrinking. "I know you're sabotaging my acquisitions." "And?" Her composure was a fortress. "I'm eroding your husband's empire, one innovation at a time. I call it equilibrium." Grant chuckled softly. "You're married to him." "Contracted," Isabel corrected, a hint of frost in her tone. In that instant, Grant glimpsed the abyss, the raw, unfiltered danger she posed, not because he desired her physically, though that simmered beneath, but because he respected her intellect, her audacity. In his world, respect was rarer than diamonds and far more perilous. 3 weeks later, Isabel infiltrated Holloway Life Sciences under the guise of a neutral consultant tasked with mediating market frictions. Officially, it was a truce. Unofficially, she wielded a dagger poised at the heart of his operations. Their sessions evolved into nocturnal rituals, late-night strategy sessions behind glass walls, the city's neon pulse bleeding into the room like digital blood. They sparred over mergers like foreplay, dissecting deals with the precision of anatomists. "You treat acquisition like conquest," Isabel accused one evening, her voice rising as she paced. "It's not dominance, it's vulnerability, exposing your flanks to counterstrikes." "And you cloak restraint in morality," Grant countered, rising to meet her intensity. "But it's just protracted aggression, a slower poison." She paused, then smiled, not with warmth, but with raw authenticity. It was a crack in her armor, fleeting but profound. Amid the verbal duels and veiled threats, a subtle alchemy occurred. Not mere romance, but a profound recognition, two predators acknowledging each other's prowess in a jungle of prey. One rain-slicked night, after a grueling 16-hour negotiation that left the staff exhausted and retreating, Isabel lingered as the office emptied. The room hummed with residual energy, the scent of coffee and ambition hanging heavy. "You could dismantle Marcus entirely," Grant murmured, stepping into her space. "You hold the blueprints to his downfall." She didn't respond, her eyes fixed on the storm-ravaged skyline. "You won't," he pressed, "because he's your shield, your facade." Isabel turned, her gaze piercing. "And if I shatter it, then you reclaim yourself or lose everything." The truth resonated like a struck gong. That night she closed the distance, kissing him first, not with tenderness but with fierce defiance, a declaration of autonomy. Their bodies collided like empires in clash, hands mapping territories long denied. It wasn't love, it was liberation, a mutual unleashing of chained ambitions. If you're still gripped by this web of intrigue where betrayal dances with passion, drop a comment below, because from here the path veers into treacherous depths and safety nets are illusions. Part 2. Marcus Roarke sensed the seismic shift before the whispers of scandal slithered into his ear. Isabel's transformation was subtle yet seismic. She ceased seeking his approval, vanishing from obligatory galas, skipping contrived dinners, even correcting him mid-sentence during board meetings with a cool authority that left rooms stunned. "You're distracted," he confronted her one evening in their opulent Gold Coast mansion, the crystal chandelier casting fractured light as he poured a bourbon, his hand steady but his eyes stormy. "Is this Holloway's influence?" She met his stare without flinching, her posture regal. "No," she said simply, "this is mine." That was the initial fracture, a hairline crack in their meticulously curated facade. The second erupted when Marcus discovered Holloway Life Sciences had thwarted his ironclad regulatory appeal, a victory he'd secured through backroom deals and greased palms. "The consultant," he snarled to his legal cadre, slamming a fist on his mahogany desk. "Unearth her loyalties, now." But loyalty had become an obsolete concept for Isabel, a relic from a life she'd outgrown. Grant knew the conflict had escalated to personal vendetta when Marcus's call pierced the veil of intermediaries. "You're sleeping with my wife," the older man accused, his voice a taut wire. Grant didn't feign ignorance. "I'm collaborating with your strategist. The rest is extraneous." A pregnant silence stretched across the line. "You believe she chose you," Marcus finally said, laced with bitter wisdom. "She doesn't choose, Grant. She endures. She survives." Grant disconnected without a retort, but the words lingered like poison. That same night, Isabel appeared at his door unannounced, her composure cracked for the first time, eyes shadowed, movements edged with urgency. "He's unraveling," she warned, stepping inside. "He'll torch it all. Me, you, his legacy, everything in flames." Grant regarded her, unperturbed. Let him ignite the pyre. She laughed, a brittle sound echoing in the vast space. You don't grasp it. He owns half the senators who draft your regulations, the judges who interpret them. Grant closed the gap, his hand brushing her arm, a rare gesture of solidarity. And you hold the secrets that could bury the other half. Their alliance deepened in those fraught days, a fusion of intellect and intimacy. They plotted in whispers, bodies entwined after strategy sessions, turning vulnerability into armor. But beneath the surface, Grant sensed her independence stirring, a force he couldn't fully harness. The climax arrived swifter than anticipated, a blitzkrieg of revelations. Isabel orchestrated the masterstroke, leaking a damning dossier, not to tabloids or watchdogs, but to an underestimated rival consortium. It wasn't overtly criminal, it was elegant devastation, recasting Marcus's decades of prudent decisions as predatory monopolies, exposing hypocrisies that eroded his empire from within. When Marcus confronted her in their echoing home, the air thick with defeat, it was devoid of histrionics. "You orchestrated this," he stated, more observation than accusation. She nodded, unflinching. From the shadows, years in the making. "And Holloway?" His voice cracked slightly. "An unforeseen variable," Isabel admitted, "but a catalyst." Marcus's hollow laugh echoed. "Beware, Isabel. Men like him hoard power. They don't distribute it." "I know," she replied softly, "and neither do I." She departed that night, suitcase in hand, leaving behind the gilded cage without a backward glance. Grant anticipated her permanence in his world, a partnership of equals forging new horizons. That was his fatal miscalculation. She tendered her resignation the following dawn, concise, professional, void of sentiment. No farewell note, no lingering embrace, just a vacuum where her presence had burned bright. For 3 agonizing weeks he refrained from pursuit, channeling his turmoil into restructuring Holloway Life Sciences. For 3 weeks, she mirrored his silence, launching her own venture from a discreet loft in New York, her strategies already rippling through the industry. Their reunion unfolded at the same museum bar, a full-circle echo. The air crackled with unresolved tension as they faced each other. "You triumphed," Grant said, his tone laced with reluctant admiration. "No," Isabel countered, "I severed chains." "And what of us?" He searched her eyes for remnants of their fire. She pondered, then leaned in, her breath a whisper. "You thrive on leverage, Grant. I refuse to be anyone's fulcrum." He smiled, bittersweet. "You awakened that in me." "No," she murmured. "I merely reflected what was already there." They parted without vows or regrets, 2 sovereigns acknowledging a draw. No possession, no conquest, just mutual respect, a rare currency in their world. Months later, Grant unveiled a radical overhaul of Holloway Life Sciences, pivoting from aggressive acquisitions to collaborative innovations, baffling analysts and reshaping the biotech landscape. Isabel's firm ascended rapidly, her name synonymous with unyielding strategy. They crossed paths once more at a global summit. Across a thronged hall, their gazes met, a silent exchange pregnant with everything unsaid, a nod to the chaos they'd wrought and the freedoms they'd claimed. Because some narratives defy tidy resolutions, they don't culminate in ownership or happily ever afters. They dissolve into recognition of self, of other, of the exquisite peril in dancing with equals. And if this tale has stirred something restless in you, igniting a hunger for more, subscribe now. The shadows deepen in the stories to come, and they'll pull you under without mercy.